All right, happening right now in Georgia, there is a video hearing underway for the three men charged in the death of Ahmaud Arbery. Travis and Gregory McMichael are appearing remotely from jail. So is William Roddy Bryan Jr., the man who recorded the February shooting. The death of the Georgia jogger also drew national outrage and attention in the days before the killing of George Floyd, sparked protests that we see continuing across the country. Now, Haley Mason, who's a reporter for CBS 46 in Atlanta, is monitoring this video hearing. And Haley Mason has tweeted this. Mr. Bryan said after the shooting took place that while Mr. Arbery was on the ground prior to police arriving, Travis McMichael made the statement, effing N-word. Those were the statements according to Mr. Bryan. And Haley then tweeted a follow-up to her reporting that this is the first blatant, I'm quoting Haley's tweet here, Haley Mason, CBS 46 reporter, this is the first blatant court statement showing the Ahmaud Arbery shooting was about race. As Ahmaud Arbery lay on the ground with 3 gunshot wounds, Travis McMichael stated, effing N-word. That is according to a statement from William Roddy Bryan. So, Anne-Marie, we were talking about this earlier with regards to whether or not this could be a hate crime, and we both are not familiar with the legal statutes in the state of Georgia, but potentially it could be seen and it could be charged as a hate crime at the federal level. So we'll have to see. And again, this is just testimony right now. And so, you know, this is just in the very early days of this hearing and of this justice, and the wheels of justice take some time, but pretty explosive testimony in just the very first couple of days of this hearing.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, this country has been dealing with so much right now. And even though when many people watched the video and watched sort of the other videos that were released around that time, where not only did you see Ahmaud Arbery enter that house under construction, but you saw several other people basically do the same thing as Ahmaud Arbery, you know, walk around, take a look, and then leave. And to know that, you know, here's a young man who basically did what several other people in the neighborhood were doing, but the sentence for that behavior was a death sentence. I think it's become quite disheartening. Often, Vlad, when I have talked to people about how they're feeling right now, not just, and it's about the Arbery case, it's about, you know, what's happening in Minneapolis and the protests around the world. There's just a level of sadness is the kind of only way that I can really describe it. Yes, people are angry, people are frustrated, but they're also saddened by what we've been witnessing. And so we want to talk a little bit about how we handle that sadness right now.
That's right. It's incredibly important that you point that out, Anne-Marie. And you know, I know there are a lot of people who watched those astronauts blasting off into space in that SpaceX rocket last week and thought, man, I wish I could go with them. And so let us bring in someone who could help us make light of what we see for what a lot of people is senseless violence, a ripping apart at the seams in this country. We're joined on the telephone by the Reverend Tim McDonald, and we're going to have this conversation, Reverend. We're going to look to you to shed some light and some soothing words that can potentially allow our viewers to take heart in all the things that are happening around us today that sometimes make it seem as if things are more difficult than people can bear. First of all, let me just give you an opportunity to tell us your thoughts on all that we've seen, not just George Floyd, but Ahmaud Arbery and the other senseless acts of police brutality, the protests that you see happening around the world, our political state of being in this country. What's your take on it all?
Well, this has been going on for far too long in our country. We can go all the way back to Rodney King. And every year there have been assaults on Black lives. At Ferguson, the Black Lives Movement began, and now we see it echoing all over the world, not even just the United States of America. I am personally from Brunswick, Georgia. I was born and raised in Brunswick, born in Brooklyn Home, the projects as we call it. Had family there, so I go back every year, and I've seen the changes back and forth. The system is broken down there, and What we cannot do is separate these cases. You cannot separate Ahmaud Arbery from George Floyd or Breonna or even Rodney King. And I think now that finally, the nation and the world are beginning to see the connections. And because of the connections, you see diverse groups now. I mean, it's white and black and brown and Native American. Everybody is saying that all lives matter, but especially because we've seen so many black lives taken, black lives particularly matter. And I think it is a good thing. Today, at this very same hour that there is a memorial for George Floyd, you have court for the three alleged murderers of Ahmaud Arbery occurring in Brunswick, Georgia. They are all connected, and I hope and I pray that America is finally making the connections. The world is making the connections, because in Amsterdam and London and Africa, people are rising up and supporting what we are fighting for here. And I just love seeing the diversity of the protest now. I think that we're finally getting what Drew Brees came back and said. His apology, I think, kind of begins to focus us on what is really, really happening around this country as far as black lives are concerned. And what we know and why Brunswick is so important right now. An arrest does not mean a conviction. We've seen that happen over and over again, where those who murdered unarmed black men were not convicted. And so we got to remain vigilant. We got to make sure that we make some concrete changes in the system so that this does not continue to happen. So I'm talking to some of my people down in Brunswick, getting updates on Ahmaud Arbery's case. And we went down a few weeks ago with a mass demonstration there. Over 300 people from Atlanta, Georgia, where I reside now, drove down there and back the same day. That's about 9 hours. That's how serious this issue is now. And I'm just excited that maybe we're at a point where we can do the right thing and unify our country instead of dividing our country.
So let me say, Reverend, what I hear from you is a level of energy that is heartening. What I have heard from many of my friends after they say that they are saddened is they also say that they're just tired, exhausted from this fight. That is a fight that started long before many of us. What do you say to your parishioners, the people in your community who say, I'm just tired of this?
Yeah, and I hear that too. You cannot get tired. I've been doing this for over 45 years. I work at the Southern Christian Leadership Conference on the national staff under Dr. Lowry. This is not a sprint. This is a marathon. And I say that to my parishioners all the time. I say that to the people in Brunswick. I say that to the people in Minnesota. This is not a sprint. We're talking about human lives. And we're in this for the long haul. The system wants us to get tired. The system wants to beat us down. The system wants to prolong the trials and make us tired and stop us from rallying and stop us from mobilizing and even stop us from voting. We cannot allow that to happen. We must be in this for the long haul, because it's not just African Americans. I mean, we know that that's where the blood is streaming from, but it's also other minorities who are experiencing. The criminal justice system in this country is broken. Just look at who's incarcerated. Look at the demographics. It is broken. Look at the DAs around the country. I live in a state that is one of 4 states that does not even have a hate crime bill, Georgia. That's absurd. That is absolutely absurd. We got DAs who have special kinds of perceptions for black people as different as opposed to any other or white people or any others. And so we got to make sure that we use the power of our vote, who we elect as DAs. We can see particularly with Ahmaud Arbery's case matters. Who we elect as sheriff matters. Who we elect on city council matters. And so we're really trying to tie into these protests, tie into these rallies, the importance of of local elections so that we can change the criminal justice system. Just a few days ago, to give you an example, in Ferguson, where Black Lives Matter really came into national prominence, just 2 days ago, they elected a Black woman as mayor of Ferguson. And that's Ella Jones. She came in as a city council, stayed there for several years. Those are the kind of concrete changes that we need. In Georgia, next Tuesday, there is an election for the DA, district attorney. There are 3 powerful candidates there. Who is the district attorney impacts the police force? Who are the police chief? Who are the mayors? And if we don't do that, this is going to continue for another 30, 40 years. But I'm hoping that in America today, what I'm seeing and what I'm sensing and what I'm feeling is that these people are not tired. I mean, these protests have been going on for 8 and 9 days, and they are not hundreds. They are thousands, and collectively, they are millions, and they are diverse. I can honestly say in 45 years, I am more hopeful this time than I have ever been. But I want us to make sure that we connect the dots, that we don't see George Floyd in isolation, that we see all of these deaths together. And when we do that, the people will do the right thing. I mean, we saw the reaction to crazy things that have happened, like our president going in front of a church holding up a Bible and got kicked in the face for doing that kind of stupid stuff. Drew Brees had to recant this morning and apologize. That's only because of one thing, the voice of the people. And we cannot be in this for the short sprint. We have to be in this for the long haul. Again, an arrest is not a conviction. We got to monitor these cases. We got to be there. We got to protest. We got to make our voices heard. We got to let the judges feel our pain, because we need convictions. That's what's going to change the system. We got to have convictions. And when we do that, in addition to voting, we can change it so that all lives will indeed matter, especially Black lives.
Very powerful words, Reverend.
Yeah, indeed. And I just, before we let you go, Reverend, so you talked about the hope and how hopeful you are that this is not a sprint, it's a marathon. I want to draw your attention to civil rights icon Congressman John Lewis appeared on CBS this morning. And it's so remarkable to... Right. So you saw him talking about the fact that back in the 1960s and the 1950s during the civil rights movement, that young men like him, young women of color and whites as well, were beaten, he says. They were arrested, they were jailed. But he made this interesting point. He said, Dr. King said over and over again, hate is too heavy a burden to bear. The way of love is a much better way. So coupled with that, coupled with the hope that you have, what is your message for young people today who might say, look, to Anne-Marie's question, I'm so tired, and this idea of being docile and returning somebody who tries to hit you up beside your head with a billy club, to love that person is very hard for me to understand. Help put that into context for us.
You know, for 7 years, I attended with Mrs. King. They used to have an institute on nonviolence training. And I was of the Black Panther movement, not so much this nonviolent stuff. But what I learned, what I absolutely learned, when you look at history now in this country, what has been accomplished has not been accomplished through violence. It has not. We've had violent elements, and I think they had a role to play. But what we have accomplished in this country, even electing an African-American as president of the United States, was achieved by diverse groups coming together in nonviolent actions, nonviolent methodologies, nonviolent strategies to move our nation forward. Yes, we're angry. I remember when I was 23, and they think they're doing stuff now. When I was 23, what they're doing now, and that's a bit what we used to do back then. And did it because we felt it needed to be done. I applaud the young people. I applaud their passion. I applaud their abilities to organize. And there has never been anywhere in the world a successful social movement without the active involvement and engagement of young people. Never has been. I don't care whether you're talking about China or Soviet Union or Central or South America or Nicaragua, or the civil rights movement. movement in this country. Dr. King, they were in their 20s. John Lewis was in their 20s. Jesse, they were in their 20s when they were making the movement happen in this nation. So we got to find a way that we applaud the efforts of these young people, support them, and make sure that they vote. Because at the end of the day, it's who is the DA, who is the mayor, who is the chief of police, who is sitting on city council that makes the policy decisions. At the end of the day, it cannot be just about emotion. It has to be about legislation and policy. Every action that we did when I was with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and this was back in the early 80s, was tied to some kind of legislation. We need hate crime bills in the state of Georgia. One of only four states in the whole country that does not have it. We need, reform in the whole criminal justice system, how we arrest people, no knock warrant, and making sure that police have better relationship and training in the community so that the only time that they come to us is when they're beating us over the head with a billy club. All of these dots have to be connected together. Young people are now getting this. They are understanding this, and they are not afraid. The other thing I like about it, they are absolutely not afraid. And my fear last week is somebody's going to die. But in the struggle, people did die. I've been very close to that. Some of my colleagues were actually killed. Unfortunately, it is one of the price that is paid in a struggle because we are at war. And we are at war for the soul of America. That was the theme of SCLC. Redeem the soul of America. We have lost our soul, especially these last 3 years. And we got to regain that. And the only way that we can regain that is having all of America. It cannot be just Black America. Having all of America coming together and saying enough is enough. And that's exactly what is happening right now. We got the memorial service going on for George Floyd, and we got the trial going on for Ahmaud Arbery. We just got to connect the dots.
Reverend Tim McDonald, your words, I think, are what many people needed to hear. We really appreciate it. I like the fact that you underlined the importance of being politically active, particularly on the local level, particularly voting. Not everyone, protest is certainly a way to get your voice heard. Not everyone can protest, but a very constructive thing to do is throw your attention into local politics. And no matter where you stand on everything, you are more likely to get the type of America you want if you go out and vote. Reverend Tim McDonald, thank you so much.